Hey, what is up everyone, Norman from Future Studio University here, and welcome to another video in our Gson series. In the last video, you have learned how Gson reacts to null values and how you can use null values to exclude properties from serialization. So if you set a property value to null, it will not be included in the resulting JSON. There is an easier way to do this, and you will learn that in this video. You can find the code on GitHub and you can find more explanations on our website. I've linked both of it in the description below. So let's get started. So here's our project where we have a small example for serialization and deserialization. And last time you've learned if we don't want to include isDeveloper, you can simply set the property to null and then it will not be part of the JSON. But that is kind of cumbersome, not really nice for us. Now there is another way, and you can jump into the user simple and let's set the isDeveloper property to transient. So this has the effect of that we can use the isDeveloper class internally as much as we want, but as soon as we want to make a JSON out of it, it will not be included. So let me demonstrate that. And if you look at the JSON down here, you see it only has the 3 properties. And even though isDeveloper is set to a realistic value of 2, it will not be included in the JSON. Now this has a side effect, and that is during deserialization, it will also be disregarded. So when you look at the user simple, it will have isDeveloper set to null, even though the JSON has a true value. So transient will always work both directions, serialization and deserialization. If you need more fine control, there is an option, and that is the annotation expose. So what you can do is you can add an annotation to every property. So you can say, I want all of these 4 properties to be part of the serialization and deserialization. And the expose annotation gives you fine control. So let's say the name we want doing serialization and deserialization. So we can just leave it empty by default. Let's say the email, we only want serialized but not deserialized. So we're going to set the serialized to true and the deserialized to false. And that can go on. So let's say the int, we want not serialized, but we want a deserialized. And lastly, the isDeveloper, we want not serialized and not deserialized. So this annotation gives you fine control over what you want to serialize, what properties you want to serialize, and what properties you want to deserialize. Now by default, Gson will not look at that expose annotation, so you need to enable it specifically. So what you need to do is, instead of using the default Gson instance, you need to customize it. And you can do that with the Gson builder. You can, now this is called exclude fields without expose annotation, but it only means that it will look for this expose annotation and respect the settings. And then we also say create. Now we will need to do this down here too, so it works both directions. And let's see what's happening when we start this again. Okay, so when we serialize this user simple, it will only have the name and email now. And that makes sense because we have set the name to nothing, so by default it will be included. We have set the email should be serialized, but these 2 properties should not be serialized. So Gson will ignore them. And let's look at the deserialization, and here we have that we only have the name and the age set, and the other 2 values are null. So we have the name, we haven't set anything, so by default true, and we have said we want the age serialized. So even though the incoming JSON has all 4 properties, we will only deserialize 2 of them. With the expose annotation, you have fine control over what properties you want to include and not. There is one thing to know, and that if you don't have an expose annotation for a property, it will completely be ignored. So the disadvantage of this way of doing that, you need to add this annotation to every single property you want to have included. So in other words, you could also kicks this one out because we didn't want isDeveloper included in serialization or deserialization. But I like having them in all of them just to specifically say, hey, I don't want this included. That's it for this video. You have seen ways of including and excluding properties during serialization with Gson. And if you've learned something, please support us by giving this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos. Thanks for watching, enjoy coding, and make it rock.